Alrighty, take two of the video podcast. For those of you that watched last week, you'll get that reference. For those of you that didn't, welcome to another edition of the Fullpitch podcast. How did I get my own podcast name wrong? Some questions will remain a mystery. Anyway, welcome back everybody to episode 5, I believe it is, of the Fullpitch podcast. And today is the Monday review. Again, none of this is sponsored. I just wanted to make a little set in the corner of my studio. If you couldn't tell, it's not actually a studio to film in. It is my studio apartment. So making the best with what we've got here. But I hope you've all been well. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. It was a good weekend of football. If for those of you that went out and watched games or that decided to avoid the heat on Saturday and stay inside and watch it at home. Unfortunately, I don't have a Paramount Plus subscription, but holy, the games that were on Channel 10, that Super Saturday run, it was some bloody entertaining football, if that's enough said. Alrighty, so for today, we're going to start off with a little bit of news. We're going to jump straight into the round preview. Not preview, round review. Got to get my words right. I keep on jumbling them up. And then it's going to be a relatively short one today because I'm a busy man. I've got things to do, places to be, people to see. So we're going to keep this one hopefully short, sharp, and to the point. Before we jump in, just want to say thank you for those that have already watched the podcast. Like, again, it's a very small amount of people so far, but I really do appreciate it. I really want to grow in this space and I want to work within football. Like, if there's any jobs getting around within the kind of footballing content scene, I want to kind of, that's where my focus is at the moment. So just trying to align myself in that space. So any love that I get on these episodes, it truly is appreciated. And I just want to thank each and every one of you that do tune in and watch these episodes. Now, into the news. So few things happened this week. So first and foremost, we have today news breaking of the Central Coast Mariners going under the APL's control to control the financials during a sale condition. So this one's relatively new news. Obviously, there was some news break a little while ago that potentially, I think it was the Sydney Olympic owner was going to be interested in potentially buying the Central Coast Mariners. Mariners a hard club because they are in a unique location. They do have a good nursery there, but it is probably a predominantly rugby league environment, and there's probably not as much money coming into that club as what they would have liked to have seen, but they have been quite successful over quite large period of time. So the APL has taken over financial control of the Central Coast Mariners as they go into sale for a new owner of the club. So the APL are confident that they'll engage local and international interest and they can find the right buyer for the club moving forward and ensure their long-term success. The club's management has indicated they will work with the APL to assist the transition and the forthcoming sales process. As far as we're concerned, right now, there will be no change to the footballing side of the Central Coast Mariners. So the games will go ahead this week against Perth Glory for the A-League Women's and then for Macarthur FC for the A-League Men's. So those are good signs, at least for now, is that Central Coast Mariners as a footballing team are going to stay operational and they're going to stay within the league. Now, what does this mean in the broader context? I agree with the statement here is that I'm confident Central Coast Mariners sale will go through and they will be run properly under new ownership and that should be seamless. But to have two clubs in the span of 12 months be in a situation, a vulnerable situation, let's call it, with Western United obviously resulting in their exit from the league temporarily. Updates on that in a second. But for Central Coast Mariners to now be in a position where there's some financial uncertainty, like I'm sure the players are I'll rephrase. I'm sure the players are focused on the week ahead and that's their priority. But there's probably this little nagging voice in the back of their head going, what happened here? I saw that a heap of Western United players got dispersed out around the league and that some of them ended up without contracts, this, that, and the other. So I'm sure there is that nagging voice in the back of their head that's going, what if, what happens, like working in the unknown. But I do think that with the history of the club, the success it's had, the area that it represents, it will attract the right kind of owner for the club who has the vision to see it grow. Because I think that's where the league needs to be now as well, is bringing people in with a growth mindset. We're not in a place anymore where fans are naturally engaged in the game. We do have to go out and see them and try and draw people in. So someone obviously needs to have quite a large funding, because I can't imagine that this club would be running at a reasonably substantial profit. They'd be making some money, but I wouldn't imagine that it's anything to write home about. So someone who's coming in with a growth mindset, who's got financial backing to be able to eat a couple of losses throughout the first transition period, and then someone who's in it for the long term, who's not just in for a quick 5-year cash hit, like someone that is really going to come in and dig their roots really deep into this club. That's what the Central Coast Mariners need. So, like, in terms of the 2025-2026 season, I don't think there'll be any major disruptions. Fingers crossed there's no hiccups along the way, but in terms of football in Australia, what we really need to see is a club like Central Coast Mariners staying in the league, staying strong, staying competitive. Although the footballing side of things hasn't been perfect this year, and I think there's a few matches that they'd love to have over again. If we were to lose a club like Central Coast Mariners, that's a big hit for the league. Western United were a new team. So yes, they'd gone on, they'd won comps, but their fan base wasn't overly well established. Central Coast Mariners have been in the league for quite some time. So if we were to lose them from the competition, the hit, the impact that that has is astronomical. Like, as a league, we would recover. I think there's enough structure around us, but we're sitting at a 12-team competition at the moment, which is quite thin. Now, we've got quite a large landscape, so there's challenges there, of course. If we go down to an 11-team competition, again, my world football knowledge isn't the greatest, but I can't think off the top of my head many professional competitions that are running off 12 teams. It just, you play too many teams the same amount of times in a season, you don't get a long enough draw. It's, yeah, I don't think we're going to end down that route here, but for the Central Coast Mariners, for the players, the staff, the people involved, I really do hope it is a really seamless transition into whoever the new owner of the club is going to be, and I hope the sales process goes well so that the longevity of the club can be secured. Now, on that as well, Western United, not on that, but to kind of shift across one, Western United have come out with essentially a statement of intent saying that they have settled all issues with the APL, all outstanding matters, and they are now in a position where they're trying to secure their financial viability to re-enter the league. Now, I haven't seen too much information about this one, but I would assume that there is going to be quite a significant amount of steps and milestones that now they'll need to reach as a club before they're allowed to re-enter the competition. I know one of the big things that they were looking at when they initially came in was a real estate deal, and they were going to use the money from that real estate deal to be able to fund the footballing club, which then that collapsed through or something along those lines. I'm not 100% clear on the nitty-gritty of it, but I do know that there was significant financial dramas there, and things weren't operating as well as they should have been at the club. But do I think that they should be allowed straight back into the competition? No. Personally, I don't think that Western United, even if they do secure their financial viability, I don't feel that they should be allowed to just re-enter the competition. I think, like, it's got to mean something. And yes, they have had a really good history in their short amount of time, but if we just go, okay, yes, you weren't able to pay your players, like their club, all their professional contracted players had to go away to different clubs to be able to play football, to then come back in and be like, hey guys, like, sorry, that was just a little blip on the radar, let's get back to it. No. There's a few routes that I see Western United re-entering the competition. One, having a few good years in the National Premier League in Victoria and showing that their academy system is developed enough to then be able to re-enter the league and show that they don't only have to buy talent, but they can nurture and grow it as well. So I think that that's a big first step for them. I think that potentially the Australian Championship is an option for them as well. Now, I know that's run by Football Australia and not the APL, but I'm sure there is some crossover between the departments where they're able to look at what getting Western United in the Australian Championship looks like, and then giving them those professional competitions to be involved in whilst not having to commit to the financial burden of being in the A-Leagues. And then, like, it needs to be year-on-year success. I think in any matter of financial viability, we can't just have one good year and go, yeah, sweet, you're good to go. Like, it needs to be at least a 3-year roadmap for them getting back into the league. Now, what does this mean for the A-Leagues in terms of their draw and its growth? Because I think we need another 1 or 2 teams back in. I like not having a buy round in the league at the moment, but I do think that we need probably another 1 or 2 teams just to give us a little bit more of a product to view, really. Like, more for people to get behind. We need to be really strategic in where we put the teams in. Again, Joe K Football said last week actually, about this kind of Croatian identifying club between Sydney United 58 and Melbourne Knights. Obviously, that's an idea off the cuff. It's not perfectly well-rounded. There's a lot more that needs to go into that. But I think that kind of vision, it's on the right track. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I can solve all the world's problems, because I sure as shit can't. But I think that, yeah, we need to look at how we can grow and what the sustainability plan around that growth in particular looks like. So Western United, they're in a better position now. They seem to have secured some form of financial security, which is amazing. But I think going forward, it shouldn't just be as easy as, yeah, cool, you're back in. There needs to be a vetting process. They need to be able to earn their way back into this league. Next news topic now, we have the Western Sydney Wanderers. What to say about them? We'll get to their game on the weekend. Is this a club in turmoil? Now, it's very early days, but we've got youth players leaving due to a toxic culture. We've got a coach that sits in a press conference and denies that there's any pressure on his position because they're just playing a game and he gets to watch people play a game. Me, as a fan of the game, I get so frustrated by that. That's not an acceptable answer. You need to show some passion for your fans. So, is Western Sydney Wanderers a club in turmoil? Now, I think that they're really on the brink of having some major issues. There was an old player come out a couple of days ago and say that, like, Western Sydney Wanderers are still like a relatively young club in terms of the A-League and football in Australia. So they came into the league and had some really good years with a lot of success, winning the Asian Champions League. Like, so they set this really high bar, but I don't tend to buy into the idea of, oh, we just had a few good years and now we're kind of just your normal footballing club. Like, you're at the bottom of the ladder with what is the largest nursery of talent at your doorstep. Western Sydney has so many high quality players that they can tap into. So I don't buy into this notion of, oh, when we came in, we just had a really good couple of years, but now, like, this is just how football works. Like, that just seems like an easy way out. It doesn't feel like there's any accountability being taken there for what's actually happening inside the football club. Again, if you had that, but you had a coach coming out every week going, we know we need to be better, we're continuously working, we're always looking to improve. And bear in mind, this isn't just this year. Like, Wanderers have been in and around the top six, and they've been thereabouts and dropped out and whatever. This is a club that should be competing year on year. There shouldn't be these peaks and troughs. Like, you look at someone like a Sydney FC, who again have a really good academy system in place, probably don't even have the same facilities as the Wanderers. I've trained at both facilities. I'd say that Western Sydney actually have the better training facilities, the better environment to be able to nurture and develop their talent. Sydney FC have got a great setup, don't get me wrong, especially with their new Sky Blue department, but Sydney FC have been able to maintain this talent development over a number of years now. Like, they've well and truly got their academy system down pat. And you can see it by Segacic going over. You've got Hayden Matthews. You've got the likes of Jake Gerwood-Reich. You've got Pat Wood, who on the weekend was outstanding. You've got Geordie Swibble, who's been in and around competitive environments for a while. Like, the list goes on. Even Zach Sapsford was at Sydney FC for a little while. Like, they have an ongoing list of players. Look at Ryan Grant, started in the academy system and has been with Sydney FC the whole ride through. So I don't need to go on listing players. We know that Sydney FC have got the academy system set up. So why aren't Western Sydney Wanderers able to emulate that kind of success? Because they have the system in place. Do they not have the right coaches? Are they not, as a footballing department, aligned in their vision? Like, I find it really interesting that a lot of like youth academies in England at the moment are doing documentaries, and I find the Arsenal one super interesting because they looked at their academy system a few years back and they went, are we achieving what we want to be achieving? No. Okay, why? Do we have the right culture in place? No. Okay, let's fix it. So they put in a couple of values, and the one that sticks with me is the lifelong learner value. Is that whether you're a coach, a player, a groundsman, technical staff, anything, you need to be involved in the club in a capacity where you are always seeking to learn and improve your skill set. And this is where I come back to the culture at Western Sydney Wanderers. I don't think that they're looking to learn or improve or change parts of their footballing operation. It's almost like they've come up with this vision, this 5-year plan or 10-year plan, whatever it might be, and they're completely unwavering. They will not budge from what they see is fit. But the reality is the landscape changes. Things change. Your competition gets better. Your competition might get worse. Players leave. So you can't sit there and think that going and staying true to this 5-year plan is going to give you the success you initially thought it would, because the environment all around that plan has changed. Everything around it's changed. So if you see that as the one true fit way to move forward, you are truly in denial and you should not be running a football club. So I think there is a lot of work for Western Sydney Wanderers, which they're a club that I want to see succeed. I want to see them do well because, like, I work with players across New South Wales. I want them to be able to go to Wanderers and have a really fruitful career. I want them to be able to look at that academy system, look at Western Sydney Wanderers and go, you know what, that's a club that I want to give absolutely everything to play for. And the same for Sydney FC and MacArthur. But at the moment, yes, it's cool to be in an A-League academy, but is Wanderers the academy that you want to be a part of? Any keeper that gets the opportunity, of course you're going to say go for it, but any player, that gets the opportunity, you're going to encourage them to go for it. But if there was an option between Wanderers, FC and Bulls, I know Wanderers isn't my first pick. 100% they're not my first pick. So are they a club in turmoil? that might be a bit exaggerated for right now, but they certainly do need to start looking internally at what their footballing operations are and making some pretty drastic changes to avoid any failings going into future leagues. All right, I think that's enough of me rambling on about the news. My voice has already started to deteriorate, so I don't know why. I don't do that much talking, just swallowed a little bit and it's come back. Oh, you guys, you didn't need to know that. I could have kept going. You didn't need to know that. That's all right. Anyway, round review. So we are reviewing round 11 of the A-League men's. So our first game of this round was Brisbane Roar versus Auckland FC at Suncorp Stadium. And this one, pretty good game. I can't remember who I picked. I believe I picked Auckland FC. It's the first positive pick of the round. We had Brisbane Roar 0, Auckland FC 2. So in this one, it's another disappointing result for the Brisbane Roar. I think we'll get to them in a while. Actually, let's start off with Auckland FC. So Auckland 2 to Brisbane Roar 0. Auckland FC played really well. Like, there are obviously moments that they could have capitalised on a little bit more, but again, to win a game 2-0, like, it's soccer at the end of the day. They're not all going to be high-scoring affairs. So I do believe that Auckland in this match held their own and they put in a really good shift. Like, geez, they're getting flogged with the Friday night games, Auckland FC, but there's not a substantial amount. They obviously scored it quite early on with a pretty easy tap in at the fast stick, kind of good little whipping in goal. Nothing to really write home about. But I'm just trying to get in and have a look at the stats again. I don't have Paramount Plus, so I do use the stats to guide my information quite substantially. But again, here, let's have a look. Our attacking stats, perfect. So, that's the head-to-head. I apologise. I was looking at the wrong part. That's my bad. Sorry, guys. I appreciate your patience and your patience with my internet. Perfect. So, what I'm finding the more football I watch in Australia is that if you want to win, don't have the majority possession. Because I'd say in about 90% of the games I've reviewed so far, the winning team has lost the possession. They've had less shots on goal, but their shots on target and their completion percentage are much higher. So Brisbane Roar had 61.3%, Adelaide United had 38.7% possession. Adelaide United, Auckland FC, far out, I'm in a state. I was up at 4 o'clock this morning, people. I apologise, I'm delusional, but we're going to grind through. We're going to get this done. Auckland FC, although losing the possession, pretty much all attacking stats work in their favour. They won all their duels. It was 13 shots for Brisbane Roar, Auckland FC 14. Shots on target, though, Brisbane Roar only got 3, Auckland FC got 6. So they're being clinical when they get down into that final third, which we expect from an Auckland FC side. Even if you watch a lot of the content that comes out of Auckland FC on social media, I do think that they're probably one of the best clubs on social media at the moment as well in terms of the content that they put out. But you see a lot of the finishing work that they do. They do a lot of this getting into wide areas, cutbacks, shots from crosses, everything like that. So Auckland FC work on their build-up and work on their completion rate, and it shows in the stats, it shows in the game. Shots from outside the box, not overly important, but it's 6-5. Shot accuracy, excluding blocked shots. So this one's interesting. So you're under pressure, but your shots aren't being blocked. Brisbane Roar are only 37.5% accurate with unblocked shots. Their general shooting accuracy is 23.1%, whereas Auckland FC on the other end of the spectrum had a 60% shooting accuracy excluding blocked shots and a 42.9% accuracy on shooting in general. So just about half of Auckland's shots were on target, which is a pretty good effort, especially under a high intensity game, under a lot of pressure. For Brisbane Roar, I'd say 23.1% is quite low, but I'd also attribute that to the defensive efforts of Auckland FC being able to get behind the ball. And I think that's where this game was won for Auckland FC, was in the transition. It was their desire to be able to get back behind the ball and hold up Brisbane Roar. Although they had a lot of possession, it was Auckland's FC shape that actually won them the game. So they didn't necessarily need the ball at feet to be able to influence the play, but by getting their positioning good, having their backline shift all as one unit, Brisbane Roar were able to maintain possession, but they weren't able to do anything with that possession. It was a lot of recycling the ball, trying to find another angle, and then trying to hit a pass in behind or play one down the line that never eventuated. So defense is where Auckland FC won this game. And again, as I said, the more you look into the league, the more you kind of understand that although we do have some really good attacking moments, we are a predominantly defensive league, which is quite cool, and for an aspiring player, gives you a pretty good idea on what you need to be really good at going in. It's not the fancy shots. I'll give you that as a hint. Yeah, look, not too much more to go into. I just think like pretty good attendance. Obviously, Suncorp Stadium, I've said it a few times, but we need to stop playing out of these big stadiums. It looks terrible on TV. Still, to have 9,300 fans in the stadium is a great effort for a Friday night A-League match, but take it to a suburban ground. That 9,300 fans is going to look like a packed out arena. The vibe there's just going to be so much better than having this 60,000 capacity stadium that's 1/6 full, a little bit more than that, sorry, but that's barely full. There's more empty seats than there are filled. I think we just need to humble ourselves as a league for a little bit and maybe drop back into some smaller stadiums. But Auckland FC 2, Brisbane Roar 0. It was a great game all round, but Brisbane Roar, the last thing I'll say on them actually is, are Brisbane Roar buying too much into this passionate hype now? I think a lot. Jeez, sorry, moment of self-reflection. That's terrible podcast viewing. Brisbane Roar are kind of getting in their own heads about how passionate they are now. Their coach, obviously quite outspoken. They're constantly feeling, as a group it seems, that they're being hard done by. So rather than focusing on the football element, which I'm sure they spend a lot of time on, they're a professional outfit, but they're probably paying a little bit too much attention on all the bullshit that surrounds it, where if they just focused in on the game and have it be water off a duck's back, like if a call doesn't go your way, yeah, have your 10 seconds of, come on ref, what are you doing? But at the end of the day, you're not going to change the ref's mind, or very rarely are you going to be able to influence the ref decision for them to change their mind. So move on with life. Water off a duck's back. Like, they seem to hold on to a lot of these decisions that go against them and take them personally, which is just not conducive to a high-performing environment. At least not for these players, because they don't seem to move on with it. They don't seem to use it as fuel to get their shots on target, find better areas. If anything, it kind of is this overwhelming head noise that ends up clouding their judgment and making them play worse. So yeah, you might not get all the calls go your way, but these guys need to see if they can influence this unwavering passion they've got for the better to be able to influence positive results for their team. Because it's a few weeks in a row now where the headlines have been the passion of the Brisbane Roar side and their coach, and their coach is probably taking a lot of pressure away from the playing group and a lot of attention away from the playing group, which is good for the players. But I think they're just getting too caught up in this unwavering passion and need to just step back a little bit and be comfortable with decisions not going their way. Because at the moment, I just don't think they are. Alrighty, on to our next game of the round. We have Melbourne Victory taking on the Western Sydney Wanderers. Melbourne 0, Western Sydney Wanderers 1. Melbourne Victory fans, don't take much from this game. There's not a lot for you guys as fans to take out of this one. Wanderers, I mean, you hung in there. You played well. Like, it's always interesting when a side that is so substantially outplayed on the pitch is able to hold on. Like, they got their opportunity. It was a penalty kick in the 29th minute. Barbarousis was able to net it in beautifully on a nice warm Saturday afternoon in Melbourne. And although Wanderers never really looked like scoring in the open run of play, they just needed that one opportunity and they held on to it for dear life, for goddamn dear life. If I'm a Melbourne Victory supporter, I'm a little bit disappointed that you weren't able to pull one back. There were some really good opportunities in play that probably should have been finished, but this is one of those ones where you just cop it on the chin and move on. Again, possession statistics, 65.8% for Melbourne Victory, 34.2% for Western Sydney Wanderers. In terms of successful dribbles, this one's actually a little bit interesting. Melbourne Victory only had one successful dribble to Western Sydney Wanderers 9. But all I'll say here is that Victory are a footballing side. Look at the way Juan Mata plays. Look at the way he influences the people around him. It's a very much let the ball do the work, we'll find the space. So for those like successful dribbles, that stat looks very one-sided, and you look at Wanderers and you go, holy shit, like, Jesus, they must have just been on the go, coming forward all the time. These are one-out runs that lead to nothing. Like, there was never really one of these successful dribbles that you looked at and went, oh, like, they're a threat. They got around the goal, but Melbourne Victory overwhelmingly in this game looked more in control, looked more of a threat. Wanderers got given their opportunity. They took it. Good on them. It's a great win for them as a club. Hopefully it steers the ship like slightly. I know we've already spoken about them in depth, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. But as a Melbourne Victory fan, you don't look too far into this one. Again, like, stats don't tell everything, but from a defensive perspective, I'd probably just say that they need to improve their tackle success rate. Again, the success rate was 50%, but probably just jumping in a little bit too often. Like, watching this game, they were finding good areas. It's just how effectively are they positioning themselves in these areas? And then we compare that to someone like Auckland. They're very well organised. Like, you can probably put a little bit of the defensive lapses from Melbourne Victory down to having a really green goalkeeper in goal. Like, he was on his A-League debut. What's his name again? Jack. That's my name. Jack Wachowski. Jack Wachowski. Mike Wazowski. Oh, fuck. Jeez, I'm autistic. Jack Wazowski. So you can put it down to having him as as an extremely inexperienced player on the side. But again, organising, I still believe that he would have been organising his team efficiently, communicating. It's just, obviously, with any changes to a side in such a key position as well, it will cause some form of disruption. Yeah, Victory fans, don't take much from this. Wanderers fans, be happy with the result, but don't get too ahead of yourselves. There's still a lot of work that footballing side needs to do, especially on the footballing perspective, because they are far behind where the competition needs them to be. But hey, 3 points is 3 points. Don't be disappointed. I'm sure a few of you went out and celebrated with a couple of beers on the weekend for that one. Alrighty. Personally, my game of the round, this next one. We have Macarthur Bulls versus Sydney FC. Bulls 0, FC 3. And holy statement did Sydney FC come out with intent. This game for 90 minutes was just great viewing. Now, quickly, let's get on to the controversy of should this game have gone ahead at its allotted time. So it was kickoff at 7:30. So New South Wales daylight savings, sun's still up till around 8 o'clock. So the first half an hour of this game was played in the sun, and at the time of kickoff, it was 37 degrees, which is very, very warm if you're a footballer. Now, they did do a drinks break in around the 30th minute. So in terms of player welfare, I actually think that the refs did a good job of balancing this. Any A-League game is going to be super high intensity, but these guys on the pitch are the fittest of the fittest. Like, they are training multiple times a week. This is their full focus. They're probably doing extras outside of their training sessions as well. Like, these guys are fit and ready for it. So there's not really a reason why they shouldn't be able to. Obviously, it's just heat strokes are a really huge risk in this environment. I think given that Campbelltown as an area, one of these kind of suburbs where there's not many high rises, there's a lot of bushland around, but it is really kind of like this, I forgot what the terminology was, but like suburban furnace where all of the like black roofs from everything, the tar roads, they all radiate heat. So it is just kind of like a hot box there. But like, these guys are professional athletes, man. Like, the 30-minute drink breaks enough. Like, I'm sure if the players were communicating on both sides that, hey, like, this heat's getting a bit much, they would have suspended play momentarily, allowed a second to recover, and then gone back out. So I think the match officials handled this really well. But this game, from a footballing perspective, was great. MacArthur, we'll start with them, actually played really good football, and obviously having Bratton and Caceres coming from Sydney FC in the past few years, there's a little bit more on the line for them in this one, and they're having it being the charity match as well, the charity cup, sorry. Bulls came out with a little bit more intent. They were coming into challenges really hard. Like, I think the Sydney FC boys maybe revved up a few of the younger ones from the Bulls and potentially got them a little bit too excited. This one's one of the rare games where the winning side actually had the most possession. We have Bulls with 45.2% and we have Sydney FC with 44.8%. But all in all, this was actually a really good game from Bulls. Like, they got 15 shots off, 3 shots on target, which is a little bit disappointing from their end. But in terms of getting down and actually being in the opposition's third, like you're attacking third, they did a really good job. Like, 8 of their shots got blocked in front of goal. So you could probably attribute that more to the defensive efforts of Sydney FC than you can to any like attacking flaws within the MacArthur Bulls side. So I think that's a really important one to look at for Bulls fans. Obviously sitting third on the A-League table at the moment, they would have loved to have been able to go up, but you also look at their match frequency at the moment, the amount of games they're playing. Like, they had a game on Monday or Tuesday, I think it was, against Auckland FC as well. So they've had to rotate a lot of players, and managing players' minutes and everything like that is a really big issue. Like, I think if Bulls came out with a 100% fresh team that hadn't already played earlier in the week, I do think that the result's probably a little bit narrower. Do I think Sydney FC still win? In hindsight, watching the way they played, yeah, I do. I think they did really well on the weekend, but Bulls are just managing more games than any other team in the competition at the moment. Like, being in the Champions League too is an absolute blessing, and it's a great experience for the players, and the deeper they go into the competition, the more rest they get in between games. Like, now they're out of the group stage, like, they are getting more rest between games, but you are still playing those games, and as coaches, you are still keeping player loading in the back of your mind. You don't want to go into injuries. Like, if I'm Bulls and I'm looking at, okay, what's more important to us? Finishing top 4 in the A-League or making a really deep run into the Asian Champions League? This year, I'm probably prioritising the deep run into the Champions League, if I'm honest. Like, they're there and thereabouts in the A-League, and to be competitive in the league is always amazing, but I think there's something to be said for winning the Asian Champions League too. Like, there's a lot on the line for winning that competition. Like, that's a pretty big deal. Like, that's not just beating people in Australia. That's like the Asian Pacific competition. So I think if I was a MacArthur coach, although I do want to continue building this A-League season and seeing how far we can take it, and obviously making a deep run into the finals, I'm probably putting more attention into my Champions League 2 run, because like that's a unique trophy that we can bring home. So for Bulls, although disappointing to concede 3 goals, they weren't 3 goals off this game. And I think especially in the back end, a lot of fatigue, like I mentioned earlier, from the heat, everything like that, just kind of got to them. They kind of just switched off. Now for Sydney FC. Statement of intent. I love it from the boys. Sydney FC, 31st minute, Kispe or whatever his name is able to get a ball in the middle. I think it was, was it Kispe or Capizano's goal? One of them. Pat Wood receives the ball in the middle and is able to just do a fucking extremely tidy grass cutter out to Ryan Grant on the middle, who then just zips it back in centrally. And it's a one touch, take a breath, didn't try to rush it first time, took his touch, placed it past the keeper. And I think that's the important bit. Didn't just panic and absolutely leather it, placed it past the keeper. That build-up of play was absolute cinema to watch. And it was Kispe, I think, first half, 1-0. Like, the composure on the ball to be able to take the touch. Like, there were bodies in the area, but he still knew that he had the time to be able to control the ball and then get a good, solid hit on it. He didn't just panic and put his laces through. That's what we see so much in this league, is players get the ball inside the box and go, oh shit, try and hit the absolute leather off it, and then you see it go bloody 10 rows back into the grandstand or over the grass hill. So I think like that build-up of play for me was like just phenomenal to watch, because it was football. Like, the ball was moving so well, it was zipping around, and even the transition to get the ball to Pat Wood is like Sydney FC getting in behind the ball, winning the transition, and then getting forward well, finding Pat Wood in the middle. But just the play there is amazing. And then Pat Wood to finish off with his goal. Again, that's just, it's the grit that they were missing last week. Like, it was great that he was able to start this week. And I think, like, I've seen a bit of Pat Wood play, used to play with him in the academies. Like, he's a really solid player. Sometimes, like, seems a little bit too lax, potentially to his own detriment. But, like, he's an absolute class player. And a 2-on-1 in front of goal just absolutely out-muscled the Bulls defenders. I think it was it Popovic? I can't remember. It might have been Popovic, but he knew what his objective was. And it was to muscle out whoever was in front of him, get one-on-one, and place the ball into the goal. Again, the composure of, okay, I've beat my man. I don't need to use all this adrenaline I've just got to put my laces through the bloody thing. Let me just slot it in and be clinical. And I think that encapsulates the Sydney FC performance this week, is it was clinical. When they got in front of goal, they took their opportunities. Now we can park last round in the rearview mirror. That game against Melbourne City, we just park that behind us. Still second on the table, still really competitive in this A-League Championship. So this is a statement game. This was a statement of intent of, yeah, we had our down week, and what? Like, we are here with one purpose, and that's to bring home another trophy. So I really, really like this performance from Sydney FC, and as a fan, being able to watch them come out with just like such a high degree of intent, because they could have gone to water. Bulls are a really gritty side. So they could have absolutely gone to water in this heat. There were so many things that they could have turned to and complained about. Bulls being a gritty side, being too physical, fouls potentially not going their way, the heat, conditions. But they dug in and they were clinical in front of goal. They played smart football. Devonish Mears, another clean sheet. Didn't have a lot of work to do. Like, the defensive line of Sydney FC is just such quality at the moment. So, yeah, not really much more to add from me there. But this game, my game of the round, really, really entertaining football to watch. So I really appreciated that one. Now, into our next game, we have Perth Glory taking on the Central Coast Mariners at a disgusting time slot. A-Leagues, can we use common sense? If we've got a Perth-based team versus a New South Wales-based team, let's not put them at the 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock time slot in Perth. 9:45 kickoff for anyone based out of New South Wales. No one's watching this. And for Central Coast, the travelling side, question, how long do you think it takes for your body to adjust to, I think it's a 5-hour time difference? 3, maybe. Anyway. If you think anything less than a day, anything less than 3 days, you're wrong. For a travelling side to go over and play a fixture that late, keeping in mind their time zone, Central Coast Mariners time zone. Yeah, they're professional athletes. Yeah, they have a full day to prepare. Yeah, they got nothing else going on. It is not that easy to adapt your sleep schedule. And anyone who tries to contradict me on that, come at me. Leave your reasoning in the comments. Like, I want to understand where the logic was by putting a New South Wales team against a Perth side in Perth at a 9:45 New South Wales time slot. That is such a late game. Some of these players are in bed by then. Like, in what world? In what world? Makes no sense. Surely we could have put that on earlier in the day. Like, you do a 1 o'clock game for Perth. Like, there's so much we could have done. We could have rejigged that. No one's watching this. Again, the 7,000 attendance, almost 8,000, is actually pretty good for HBF Park, if I'll be honest. But if we look at the TV viewership, it would have been terrible, because there's no way that anyone's watching this at this time. Like, it makes no sense. But Perth Glory 3, Central Coast Mariners 0. Again, I've just given Central Coast Mariners a pretty extensive list of my excuses for them. But for Perth Glory, hey, you take your 3 goals and you run with them, because holy, what a game. Again, I've contradicted myself a few times here now, but the possession was pretty even. So 54% to Perth Glory to 45% for Central Coast Mariners. All the stats are pretty even, except Perth Glory did have 10 successful dribbles to Central Coast Mariners 1. Again, similar to what I've already said about Melbourne victory, so I'm not going to go back into that in too much detail. But yeah, pretty good game. Like, again, I only watched the highlights for this one, don't have Paramount Plus. So unfortunately couldn't watch the full game. Even if I did, wasn't watching it live. I was going to sleep. But Tom Lawrence, hang on, let me double check, make sure that's his name. I don't think it is, but Lawrence. Sorry for the awkward silence, ladies and gentlemen. Just trying to find his name. Where is he? Oh my days, why can I not find this? Where are you, mate? Am I blind? This is terrible viewing. I'm so sorry, people. Yeah, no, Tom Lawrence. Far out. He doesn't have a photo. Why doesn't he have your photo? Get the man a photo. A-Leagues, do your shit. Get this man a photo on the website, please. Thank you. All right. Tom Lawrence is becoming a real problem for the league. This guy is a goal-scoring menace. So Perth Glory 3 scored throughout a few different stages in the match as well. So you have the 24th, 46th, 54th minute. All in all, pretty good match from what I saw. I think it probably should have been 2-0. The goal from the corner, although absolutely spectacular, should have been dealt with by the Central Coast Mariners defence. They'd definitely be kicking themselves at that one. But the reality is that Perth Glory came out with intent, and I think that's been their target, is Perth Glory, let's come out hard, fast, let's get our opposition on the back foot straight away. Let's make them feel like they're behind the game from the get-go. And then as we get into the game, we either build on it or we get ahead 1 or 2, and then we park the bus, shut up shop. We stay as a really defensive unit. So I think like Perth Glory's tactics at the moment probably won them this game because they did just come out ready and raring to go. In terms of tackle success as well, from a defensive perspective, is Perth Glory, they didn't only go forward with intent, they got behind the ball and they were able to win it with intent as well. Again, 71% tackle success rate, that's really high. Like, that's almost like your top 10% of complete tackle percentages across the league. Is to be able to get a 71% tackle success rate, that's really good. So in terms of that, it means they're able to spend more time on the ball. I know the possession was 50-50, but they're getting into good areas and they're able to win the ball easily. Recoveries, 43 again. So Perth Glory, although they were up, they were getting in behind the ball. They were outworking the Central Coast Mariners. Central Coast only going down for 33 recoveries. Yeah, not going to spend too much time on this game because I didn't watch a lot of it. So I'm sorry, any Perth Glory fans or Central Coast fans. But yeah, I think in terms of Central Coast, park this one to the side. That travel just makes no sense. A-Leagues need to look at that because, like, again, having a New South Wales team travelling to that time zone, like, there's got to be some consideration for the players and going, oh, yeah, no, we are actually making you guys play at a time where you'd probably be asleep. Like, there's a fatigue element here. Yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest one that I want to take out of this is just, what are we doing? What are we doing, A-Leagues? All right, next game of the round, we have Wellington Phoenix taking on Adelaide United in a 2-2 draw. Now, I can't remember what I said about this game in my preview, but I'm pretty sure that I picked this game to be a draw. I think it was 1-1 that I picked it, but I'm pretty confident I picked this game to be a draw. Regardless, though, Adelaide had this one. It was really their game to lose. Now, I would have liked to have seen Phoenix be a little bit more convincing throughout the larger proportion of this game, be that coming off a really big win against Brisbane rolled around earlier, and especially coming back home in front of their home fans. I thought that they might use this energy and continue to build off of what they've already done. Unfortunately, wasn't quite the way it all played out, but again, maintained majority of possession, 61.9 to 38.1 for Adelaide United. They were able to claw it back. This game could have gotten away from Wellington Phoenix, but they were able to claw it back and stay in it. So I think there's a lot of positives to be taken out of that as well. And then when we look at the defensive stats, we've got Adelaide United pretty much won every single defensive stat. Their tackle success rate is the only one they're behind on, where Wellington Phoenix does 66.7, whereas Adelaide United only had a 55.2. Still, that's kind of your average tackle success rate. That's what you'd expect from any team week to week. So there's not a lot to be taken out of that one. I do think that just in the later parts of the game, when Wellington Phoenix did kind of get their roll on, they did put the Adelaide United defence under a fair bit of duress, and they dealt with it well. Like Adelaide here, we've got 35 clearances and 50 recoveries for Adelaide United. Any fullbacks, centre backs, centre defensive midfielders know that 50 recoveries is an absolute punish in the legs. I'm a goalkeeper. I only do 20-metre runs for recoveries from going outside my 18-yard box back into my 18-yard box. I've got it easy compared to these guys. But even for me, 50 recoveries, 20 metres, 20 times, like that's a couple of K just in recovery runs. That's not building up with the football. That's not playing out. That's not your off the ball movement. That is just recovering behind the ball. That is a huge effort from Adelaide United. So I think that big one to take away from them there. Obviously, it's 2 goals apiece. Phoenix started to get a roll. 15 shots to Adelaide's 8. Shots on target were even at 5 apiece. So again, Wellington are getting down there. It's just, are they being as clinical as they could be? Are they being as patient as they could be when they get down to the other end as well? I think that's a big one too, is you can get down to the final third, but when you get there, are you convincing on the ball, or are you losing your head and just throwing legs at it? Because if you're just throwing legs at it, then it's pretty well pointless. But for both teams, pretty much a grind of a match. I just would have liked to have seen Wellington Phoenix come out and continue off that energy that they built from that match against Brisbane Roar. But I digress. Now, into the final game of the round, we have Melbourne City taking on the Newcastle Jets. Melbourne 0, Jets 1. Few disappointing weeks here for City in a row now. Obviously, you've got the draw against Sydney FC, which was 0-0, which City looked pretty good in, but just weren't able to find their final pass, everything like that. And you had Devonish Mears, who had a really good game in goals. But even in this one, City had 61% percentage to Newcastle Jets 38. It's just... offsides probably killed them, if I'm being honest. 7 offsides. So the defensive line of the Newcastle Jets was actually quite good. But again, Jets here are a very counter-attacking football side. So they'll wait and wait and wait. And when they get their opportunity, they'll take it. Like, they're very good with set pieces and everything like that as well. But Jets understood the game plan. They knew what they were going to try and do. You're not going to outplay Melbourne City. Melbourne City is a footballing side, have extreme depth. They are extremely clinical. They can move the ball under pressure well. So what do you do with a side like that? You beat them on the counter. And I think that's what Jets did well. Again, forcing them into 54 recoveries. Jets actually had more recoveries. But again, Jets' tackle success rate, they knew that their defence needed to be an absolute brick wall to be able to hold up this Melbourne City side. And again, a really high percentage, 73.3%. Again, we're talking that really top tier percentage of tackle success for Newcastle Jets. And like the saying, although potentially overused, does stand true, is attack wins games, defense wins championships. And if you can maintain this gritty level of defense throughout the entire season, which Jets have struggled with, but coming up against, I don't want to call them a Titan opposition, but a really, really like firm opposition of Melbourne City, for Jets to be able to hold their defense strong in this game is something that they should really be able to take a lot of pride out of, take a lot of kind of enjoyment from as well. Like, being able to hold up to an attack like that is enjoyable. Like, it's not something that you go out and you're like, oh, I'm hating every minute of this. If you're able to shut down one of the best teams in the league consistently, that's something that you take enjoyment from. Like, I know even at my level, I love being able to completely nullify a team's attack. So if you're able to do that against one of the best teams in the league, man, like, good on you. That is fantastic. All in all, like, this game, whilst had its moments and was entertaining, no attendance recorded for this game, which is weird. It did for every other game. But all in all, a pretty good match, nothing that I'd write home about. But again, Lachlan Rose continuously performing in front of goal as well, doing an absolutely fantastic job of being able to find himself in goal scoring opportunities and capitalise on them. Like, he's a young one who's kind of bounced around a few different clubs. I think he has found his spot. I think he suits Newcastle Jets really well. So it's really good to see how he's going to continue to grow on this. And I think he's a hard one, Lockie Rose, but I do think that he's got potential to start pushing for some Australian type squads if he continues this consistent run of form. Because that's the big thing for Jets, is just the consistency. We know they can do it. We saw it in the Oz Cup run. But can they do it consistently throughout an A-League season? That's what I'm really keen to see now. So Newcastle Jets, they've already won a bit of silverware this year. They're doing okay in the A-League men's, but to be able to go down to Melbourne, beat Melbourne City, to be able to nullify their attack to such an extent, there's a lot of positives to be taken out of that as a Newcastle Jets player and fan. And for the Newcastle Jets fans, travel more. Get down to Melbourne, man. Go and support your side. Come on, what are you doing? No, I'm joking. Yeah, it's really good. Again, another one, I keep on talking about it though, but one I don't think Jets should be playing out of Mac Jones. I know this was played at Amy Park, but these kind of fixtures, man, they just don't need to be played out of these big stadiums. It makes no sense. No sense. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our round 12 review done and dusted. So looking forward, on Wednesday we will do our round 13 preview episode. But a lot going on in the A-Leagues at the moment. It's an interesting time. I really do, like I said the other week, want to keep seeing teams grow, and I want to see this league turn into something. And I think it just takes the right people with the right growth ambitions. Like, you've got the UBF boys, you've got the Suited and Booted boys, you've got SC Hellas, who are a little bit more about like the culture behind the game, which I love, because the more people we get involved in the game, the absolute better. It doesn't all just need to be based around the A-Leagues. And coming into the NPL season, don't worry, we'll be diving into plenty of culture. But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, make sure to follow, subscribe, leave a like, do whatever it is on whatever platform you're watching this on, and I will see you when I'm looking at you.